Yeah. You ain't see me activated. You better hope that you never see me agitated.
Hi, welcome to my very first video in my programming series. This is a brand new series, and it is my very first series that I am going to really dig into all of the details of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and there's a lot of things that we're going to go into, but you might want to know why I'm choosing to do the languages that I've chosen to teach in this particular series. So what I want to do is jump right into that. I initially made this for friends and family and things of that nature who are looking to join me in my programming business, but I figured I could put it onto YouTube, so if there's anybody else that's newer to programming, looking to understand that world and see where they want to go with it, I figured this would be a great video to get that done, or a great series to get that done. But this initial video will give you some real good ideas of what maybe is out there and what you might want to do. So let's dive right in. And I'm going to keep this super high level. There's a lot to discuss, and we'll go into details later. I just want to give you an idea for now of what this looks like. Now, as you can see here, I've structured up a flowchart of sorts, so you can see, web applications here. Web applications, and there's mobile applications, and there's gaming. What do you want to start with? This video is called Begin with the End in Mind, because I don't know if you want to develop a website, a mobile app, or a game, or specifically what you're trying to do with your programming, but you can definitely cover it anywhere along this particular path. Now, are there different languages that are potentially out there? Absolutely, and you should maybe learn about those if you're interested, or if there's a popular place that you want to go work that uses a particular language, then that's something you're going to want to think about. But other than that, this will give you a real good idea. So the front end, what is the front end? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is the structure, maybe better known as the content instead of structure, but it's the stuff that brings you, what you see. So there's an image here. There's an input field here. There are two buttons here that I can click on, and another link here. And each one of those things is what's known as HTML. Of course, HTML needs something called CSS, because the CSS is what gives the appearance. If it wasn't for CSS, these circles would actually not be circles, and they wouldn't highlight like this, and there's a lot that wouldn't happen, including the background being black. Normally it'd be a white page, and everything would be pushed to the left, and it would be in whatever size that it was downloaded in. So the picture, if it was, a big old picture, it would show up that way. Or if it's a real tiny picture, it would show up that way. CSS allows us to shape and size and color and do things of that nature to these items. And then there's JavaScript right here. JavaScript is what's going to allow us, and perhaps not in Google's case. Google might actually be using entirely different languages for these items, but I just want to give you the idea of what's happening. And so JavaScript is the action behind the thing. So HTML gives us an input field, and CSS makes it a rounded border here, and it makes it gives us some styles and that color and click and things to click on and things of that nature. So, but JavaScript is going to say, so if I said hello here and I typed it in and I hit enter, JavaScript is really the action. So it's going to basically bring us the content that we're looking for, so to speak. So if I have a button and I have a box and that box is red, and then I hit a button that turns that box blue, that's what JavaScript is. CSS is what's responsible for making it red or blue, and HTML is responsible for the box being there in the first place. So that hopefully will give you an idea. Now, that's called front end. The back end would be like if I have a form and I'm filling out a password and entering my password. I don't want anybody to know what that password is. So a lot of things that you do on the front end of things are when I send them and receive them, if I press a button or if I do something, JavaScript, React, it's usually done on the front end here inside of the address bar or somewhere where it's dangerous and a middleman attacker could come in and steal that information. Well, Node.js is going to help speed up the process of processing the information, but it's also going to make it more secure. We'll dive into how it does that later on, but it's also responsible for serving up information. If I go here and I type in google.com, right? Well, if I'm hitting enter, there's two things that's going to happen. One, this middleware. The browser has middleware that takes the words that I put in here and actually sends it as a request over to Google. Then Google has a back-end thing similar to this node that will process the information and say, oh, here's what that person is looking for. They'll put together a little package. They'll send me back a response, and that's the front end that I end up seeing. The response is the front end, and the back end is how Google sends it to me, and the middleware is, basically what sends my request to Google. Then let's talk about databases. Databases like MongoDB here are the memory. So if I am building a game, for example, and I get my player to level 10, then I turn off my game and I turn it back on, how does it remember that I'm at level 10? Well, that's MongoDB. That's the responsibility there. Very brief, very high level. That's basically how web applications are built and used in the language that we've chosen to go here. So HTML, CSS, GitHub is what's known as a repository. It lets us put our code onto it for others to see our progress, our effort, and maybe even contribute to what we've done. JavaScript is the next thing after that, which gives us the actions that we need. Then we're going to go into React.js. What is that? So JavaScript, React.js. React.js is a type of JavaScript, but it's pre-packaged. It's a framework or a library. Package managers, that's what these are. This one is a framework for JavaScript. And so what that allows us to do is write JavaScript way easier. And it allows us to inject some HTML in there and even use CSS in some capacities easier throughout it. So it's a really strong package to help us code better and easier. Same thing with Mongoose for MongoDB. NPM is a node package manager. It's needed for Node. And basically these things all work in tandem. Now why I've chosen these languages is they're all kind of JavaScript related, so it's going to make it easy to go down that path. Each one of these just makes our job a little bit easier to write the previous things that we learned in a high level way. So I'm going to keep it simple that way. Then, once you know React.js and you're good at writing applications better, now we have React Native. React Native allows us to write mobile applications. If I design a web app that fits onto your phone and you can go to your phone's internet and see it and it works on your phone well, that's a responsive design. But a native app is where I can go onto the App Store and find your application, download it, and now I've got a little icon on my screen I can click on, and I can enter the app and do something inside of the app. That's a native application. We will be getting into those after we've worked through the improving our speed of learning the other stuff. So Android Studio is a program that is normally used to develop in Android phones for the Apple or for the Google Play Store, and then the Apple App Store. A lot of people will use Xcode, and there are programs that work with both of those, so you don't have to use Android Studio and you don't have to use Xcode, but those are two things that you can use. And React Native is really going to do the majority of the lift for both of those. So I can, if I'm looking to build an application that is both Android and Apple, React Native is going to help me get that job done. And I might need to in some edge cases go into Xcode and figure it out, or Android and figure it out, so that I can improve the application overall. But React's ultimately going to be what helps me get that job done. Then next thing is gaming, right? So we have Unreal Engine and Unity as two examples. I have not used Unreal Engine, but I have used Unity, and I've used it a considerable amount to build a few games. So that's where we're going to go for the gaming side. If you're looking for this, in the end, you might end up going and figuring that out on your own, or to a different programming course. There's definitely some stuff out there. This allows us to get into augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D, 2D, all the different types of gaming, Oculus Quest, HoloLens, that whole world we'll be able to step into and do a couple of really cool things. Full stack, this little thing here, talks about full stack programming. So full stack programming is everything with a star here. Normally, these three wouldn't be starred. Instead, you'd have React starred along with Node.js, MongoDB, and something called Express, which is not down here. But all it means is I can build the front end, I can build the back end to make it so more secure. I can build a database, and I can deploy it to the web in most cases. Then that deployment part is not necessarily what makes you full stack. What does make you full stack is I can build the entire application from the front end to the back end to the database, the whole thing, and that's what makes me a full stack developer. But last thing that I want to discuss is this DevOps section, and this is very high level. There's a lot of argument about, a lot of different viewpoints on what's an engineer, what's a developer, who's a programmer, who's a coder, all the things, right? To me, when you hear engineer, it's somebody who went to college and really went into the intricacies of how to build something and how to construct it from the most basic components from scratch. And we're talking about hardware in this case. So I think of an engineer as somebody who builds the machine itself, and the machine would adhere to specific standards. A developer, on the other hand, would use a programming language to define a software application that works on that machine. And then you have operations that deploys the application onto the web where that machine can actually access it. And so you have developers, you have operation, you have engineers. DevOps is the combination of developers and operations, and it's an entire category by itself. I'm not going to get bogged down on it too much for this conversation, but needless to say, it's just something that when you're developing a software application, you want to do it in a way where it's the most efficient, where your team is learning, where they're getting the job done, getting the feedback that they need. They're not producing too many features and introducing bugs, but they've got an entire process that's effective for getting the job done and being an effective, smart, learning organization. So that's basically what we're doing and what we're going through. HTML, CSS, we're going to go into GitHub so we can get our stuff onto the web and make it collaborative, or just show off our work to employers or whoever we want. And then we have JavaScript. We'll get into the faster version of JavaScript in the front end with React. Then we'll get into the back end with Node, NPM, MongoDB, Mongoose, and then we'll move over into mobile applications from there. What's the sassy CSS? It's whether I do it or not, maybe. It's just going to increase the speed of your CSS. I haven't fully decided on that yet, so we'll see when we get past the CSS. And I think actually probably right after JavaScript right there, which is why I put that arrow there. Software development deals with Agile, DevOps, CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous delivery. We'll talk about that stuff, microservices. We'll also talk about lean thinking and minimum viable products, things of that nature. This should give you, some basic idea as to where you might head in this path or in your career. And I hope that's a little bit helpful for you as we're getting started into the actual part of the program where we're going to start really learning, what is HTML? What is CSS? How does this stuff work? How does it structured? What tools do we use? All that stuff. That's what we're going to go ahead and start diving into in the next video. Thank you very much for your time, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.